For those that aren't familiar with Casper, can you
Mhm.
kind of explain just briefly what it is? And then,
For sure. So the Casper test is a standardized test that looks at your social and emotional intelligence, is kind of my understanding of it. The way it works is there are written components as well as video components. So you do it online, and once you enter this kind of workspace, they give you a prompt. You have a few seconds to kind of think about your answer, and then you are led into either questions that are written questions or audio recorded or video recorded answers. So sometimes the Casper can be like written prompts or videos. So they will give you like a scenario played out for you and ask you what you would do in response to this scenario, or what do you think the right thing is to do in this situation. And so it's really looking at your ethical judgment as well. So for me, prepping for the Casper involved a couple of different things. The first one was to learn about medical ethics. So I was able to read a couple of books on that as well. I believe the main one that I read was Doing Good. And I know that's one that's recommended to a lot of people. I actually found it really helpful in terms of going through different ethical dilemmas within healthcare and working through it, because there is never one like ultimate right answer, right? There are gray zones within each answer as well, and being able to understand them is really important, and reflect on them is also very important. So reading that book early on really helped me, and then being able to do the practice tests that they provide. And then I also spent a lot of time with one of my friends just practicing, because she had to do the Casper as well. So we would go back and forth with different practice Casper questions. And I believe there's a huge list on BMO. Like there are hundreds of you can go back and forth. And they have samplers provided as well. I would keep it that a lot of the samples can make it seem like you can fit a lot within the time frame that you have to answer. But don't compare your answers to that sample answer completely, because I didn't fit that much information into the time provided. But just being able to hit the main points, provide your reasoning as to why you would do something, and then also the main thing I think is connecting it back to a lived experience if you have the time to. So my preparation really involved reading, practice questions, and then getting familiar with just medical ethics in other ways through YouTube videos, or sometimes people on Instagram also provide practice questions. So doing those as well and seeing how they answered them versus how I would answer them, that was helpful for me as well.
well, and is typing speed, sometimes I see that as a
Mhm.
recommendation for Casper test. Like, how important do you think that is in terms of being successful?
Yeah. So I do think at the beginning I was really worried about typing speed as well, because you are very limited with the time that you get, and being able to hit all of the major points can be difficult in that time. I did start off by trying to improve my typing speed with one of those online games that they kind of let you, like, you have to race somebody to type out all these sentences. But I found that as somebody who is a slower typer, I wasn't going to see those advances in my time or improvements in my typing speed as quickly as I needed, because I was only a few, like maybe 1 or 2 months out. I wasn't going to be able to increase my typing speed in those 1 or 2 months. So I stopped focusing on that, and instead I started focusing more on being able to communicate more concisely, but also being able to, while being concise, include the most important information. And again, I'm not sure if that's the best strategy, as I wasn't somebody who did really well on Casper, but I think that I don't know how else I would have been able to improve my speed in such a short time. I'm sure if you had been working on it for a couple more months, then maybe that's a possibility. But I would say focusing more so on being able to type out your answers in a concise manner, but still including language and yeah, language that can kind of communicate what you're trying to say more quickly is important. And then being able to, again, have those reflections of your experiences so that you're not spending too much time thinking about how you want to say them because you've already kind of done that part, right? And just figuring out how to connect them more quickly. Yeah.
Okay, so there are some similarities between, do you have to also do the Casper test for any of the schools that you applied to?
Yeah, I did have to do the Casper test as well. I believe I did that at the end of the previous year. So it must have been like it was the last date for Casper available. I do think it was either November or December that I did the Casper in. And for that as well, I did end up prepping a lot for Casper. Um, I think one note about the Casper is that it can be difficult for some students. Like for me, especially, I don't think I did well on Casper, but it is something that schools look at. And that was something that really, it brought me down for a while when I saw my Casper score initially. I was like, oh my goodness, like how am I going to get into school now? Especially Calgary and Manitoba look at Casper heavily. McMaster, I don't believe looks at Casper anymore, but they do their own initial Kira and then a secondary Kira as well. Um, but, that being said, it's still possible. I'm still here in school. So I think knowing that one aspect of your application doesn't determine your fate is really important. For Casper, I ended up prepping a lot and I didn't do well, but there are people that didn't prep for as long. Maybe they did like 1 or 2 days of practice tests and they ended up doing really well on it. So I think maybe my main tip for Casper would be to maybe not fall into the scheme of, each answer has to have this, this, and this. You have to fit this in within a time frame, but really answering the questions authentically, being able to reflect on your past experiences, being able to maybe not overdo the practice, but really spend the time reflecting on your experiences and knowing how to tie them into your answers. That's probably the main point.